Good evening, everyone. I'm Renee Stewart, incoming co-vice chair of Philadelphia chapter of Women in Bio. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for our presentation and panel discussion, Making History Again, How Philadelphia Has Signed a New Declaration of Cell and Gene Therapy. Our panelists tonight are Claire Greenwood, Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia, Kate McNamara, Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, Michele Washko, Life Science Innovations, and Janine-Sade, IPS-Integrated Project Services. Tonight's discussion will be moderated by Anna Maria Collins, also from IPS. Just a couple of housekeeping items. You'll be able to see the speaker if you stay on speaker view. We ask you to mute for the panel discussion so that we don't have background noise. In the participant area, you can change the name to your full name. As Emily said, the session is being recorded. And for those of you who are Women in Bio members, that recording will be posted on the website and will be available for you to watch at any time. As you have questions for our panelists, please put them into the chat and our moderator will get to as many of them as we have time for. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Women in Bio. We're a national organization supporting diversity and inclusion for women in the life sciences and beyond. We do that by engaging, educating, and empowering women at all stages of their careers and in all life science and related industries. For middle and high schoolers, we have the Young Women in Bio program. And for everyone, we have chapters and national organization programs that cover a wide variety of subjects, things like professional development, efficient networking, entrepreneurship, some current topics in the life science industry, and much, much more. For those in the C-suite, we have an executive Women in Bio program and the Boardroom Ready training program. And finally, there are mentorship opportunities through the MAPS program. Here in the Philadelphia chapter, we are actively committed to promoting careers, leadership, and entrepreneurship for the women in the tri-state area. Our membership reflects the diverse industries that we have here in the Philadelphia area. Our members come from biotech, pharma, higher ed, engineering, finance, and much more. So our members have access to a deep pool of experience and talent. We are currently having a membership drive this month. Our 2020 membership campaign is Inclusion and Innovation Achieves the Impossible. For the membership drive, we have 20% off of memberships through the end of the month. So you can go to Women in Bio's website, womeninbio.org, and use the code ACHIEVE2020 to get 20% off. If you would like to learn, I'm just gonna, before we thank you, I just wanted to say that if you want to learn more about Women in Bio, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you. As I see that someone has put the membership email in the chat, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Women in Bio couldn't function without our excellent sponsors. Tonight's event is sponsored by IPS, Integrated Project Services. And IPS is a global leader in developing innovative business solutions for the life science industries. They offer clients a single source, integrated approach to designing, consulting, and validating technically complex facilities. And we here at the Philadelphia chapter are thrilled that IPS has been a sponsor for our chapter since its inception. Tonight's discussion will be moderated by Anna Maria Collins, Head of Global Marketing and Communications, IPS Integrated Project Services. Anna is responsible for strategic directions and execution of IPS global brand of knowledge, skill, and passion. Anna's oversight includes marketing, advertising, business development, corporate communications, employee engagement, and client experiences activities. Anna's background includes more than 20 years of experience working in fast-paced business-to-business sales and marketing environments. She's a graduate of Temple University's Fox School of Business here in Philadelphia with a degree in international business and marketing. And she's involved in a number of organizations here in the greater Philadelphia region. Anna, welcome. Thank you for moderating our panel this evening. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Renee. And thank you everybody for joining us here tonight, and especially our panelists. I'm delighted to be moderating today's panel of industry leaders to discuss the emergence of cell and gene therapy industry in the Philadelphia metro area. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Claire Greenwood. So Claire is the Executive Director, CEO, Council for Growth. She's also Vice President of the Leadership Engagement, Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia. As the Executive Director of the Chamber's Regional CEO Council for Growth, Claire leads the work of more than 60 businesses, higher education, and civic leaders who commit their time and efforts to enhancing economic growth and prosperity in the tri-state region. She also oversees the Chamber's Select Greater Philadelphia Council, which tells the powerful story of Greater Philadelphia's unique business assets to inspire talent and companies to make the community their home. Claire is currently leading the Philadelphia Regional Recharge and Recovery Task Force, overseeing the work of the Cell and Gene Therapy and Connected Health Initiative, and serving as a member of the Board of Directors for Campus Philly. So with that,
thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. And I look forward to a really interesting conversation tonight. I think my role is to hopefully set the stage a little bit, talk about how we view our competitive position as a region, and to continue to champion our effort to tell our region's story, and hopefully help others become champions as well. We really view through my role at the CEO Council and an effort that Michele, my colleague, will talk a little bit more about, the Cell and Gene Therapy and Connected Health Initiative, a real opportunity to tell that story and have others around the globe recognize what I think we know, that Philadelphia and this region is a key hub of talent, research, capital, and companies in the cell and gene therapy space. So lots to cover. We, I think, have a really great story to tell already, and more in development, I think. I mean, a couple of just kind of high level in JLL's Life Sciences Outlook this summer that was just released, our region broadly in the life sciences space was ranked 6th among other US regions. That was up 2 spots from last year, so we know the trend line is in the right direction. When it comes to cell and gene therapy subsectors specifically, we really do feel like, and have proof points that we are really in the top 5 in terms of most of those competitiveness measures. And we're, I think, fair to claim that we are one of the original homes of the research that was nurtured more than 25 years ago, and continues to fuel our region as a research and development powerhouse in this space. You can go to the next slide, please. So just a couple of facts that we like to make sure are top of mind for folks in these conversations. Our region has seen the first FDA-approved gene therapy and the first FDA-approved cell therapy. 4 other therapies have research origins that are now FDA approved. So those research origins in the greater Philadelphia region. So a lot of the cutting edge science and the companies resulting from them are coming out of greater Philadelphia. As I said, sort of top 5, we ranked 3rd in total NIH grants and 6th in total NIH funding. And as you see here, obviously, a lot of the other assets that I think are foundational to our region's claim that we have it all and more. So Go on to the next slide. We also know that we are increasingly being recognized globally as an innovation hub. This here is just from JLL's 2019 World Cities Report, where Philadelphia was featured for the first time, which in the innovators category, which I think was an exciting moment for a lot of folks, and I think starts to show proof that we're making waves. In June of this year, Startup Genome also named Philadelphia 8th among the top 100 emerging startup ecosystems in the world. So just a couple of you know, factoids, hopefully, that you'll take and put in your pocket and repeat to others to continue to prove out our strength in this space. Go on to the next slide, Anna. But we also know that the talent pool for this sector is really deep. While we know we have to continue to work on the pipeline of that talent, the just sheer size of what is here already is significant and meaningful to organizations that are already located here and those who are considering the Philadelphia market as a place for their cell and gene therapy company. You know, the number of colleges and universities can ebb and flow over time, but it's either over or nearly 100 at any given moment. And of course, really deep assets in medical school and pharmacy. We confer almost 90,000 degrees annually, and many of those are in the sciences. We've seen increasingly higher retention rates of those graduates as well. And we always like to compare ourselves to Boston. Those numbers are higher than the Boston metro area. So you know, another win, I think, for us in this market. I think Michele will talk a little bit more about the analysis we just released last winter, but we worked collaboratively with the University City Science Center, and thanks to them and Venture Cafe for hosting us today, and the University City District's West Philadelphia Skills Initiative on this talent needs assessment. That really suggests additional and significant future growth in jobs in this sector, and sharing here just a quick snippet of the range of projections, anywhere from a 16% increase in employment all the way up to 35% in the more conservative scenario. You can go on to the next slide. But you know, all of these elements are also contributing to really significant company formation. And just sharing here some of the companies, but we know it's more than 30 in this cell and gene therapy development companies in this region. And while sometimes the names are changing or they're working significantly at the science, we also know that more are on the way, and the pipeline is really deep coming out of the research institutions in our region. And actually, these companies are really attracting very significant outside capital. You know, in this year alone, there were 34 deals valued at nearly $7.9 billion. Sharing a couple of those that folks hopefully have been aware of in the specific cell and gene therapy space: Passage Bio, Imvax, Amicus. Which Amicus also is an interesting example of an organization that expanded from Cranberry, New Jersey, and chose Philadelphia. In fact, actually, I think in the building that Emily at the Science Center is in, as the location of the research and development center in that expansion. So not only growing companies out of our local institutions and that research capacity, but starting to become a magnet in terms of attracting others. I'm sure Kate will talk about IOVANCE, which is another great example of a West Coast company that has chosen to build their manufacturing operation at the Navy Yard. So I think this might be my last one. We know there's a lot of momentum here, and that's certainly proven out by the data that we're seeing. But we also, as Anna mentioned, have been organizing over this summer a Philadelphia Regional Recharge and Recovery Task Force of more than 140 or so leaders representing a broad range of organizations and individuals from across the community, who have also reinforced this goal of becoming a cell and gene therapy hub and globally recognized as such among the top 5 aspirations of that exercise. And so it's exciting for us to see not only the research and data that's proving our case, but also the momentum that's building, I think, within our local community behind this effort. And so I think, Michele, I think there's somebody in between, but Michele will talk more about sort of what we're specifically working on in the Cell and Gene Therapy and Connected Health Initiative. But I hope this at least starts us with some groundwork around kind of why we think our region has the assets to claim this. So thanks.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, it certainly has been wonderful to see the phenomenal growth in this area and really position ourselves for more. So I often do hear about the, you know, equating us to Boston, and I have no doubt that we'll surpass that in no time. So it's really exciting times for sure. So thank you for that. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Kate. So Kate McNamara is Senior Vice President of the Navy Yard for PIDC, which is Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation. Kate is an attorney specializing in complex project management, public sector real estate, and capital projects. In her current role as PIDC Senior Vice President for the Navy Yard, she oversees development and operations at the 1,200-acre mixed-use campus, which is home to 175 companies and over 15,000 employees. Kate joined PIDC in 2011 to lead the Lower Schuylkill Master Plan, a $411 million initiative to reposition 3,700 acres of riverfront industrial land. To date, that initiative has attracted over $140 million in public and private investment, including infrastructure, a riverfront trail, and shovel-ready development sites. So with that, Kate.
Hi, everyone. So thank you, first of all, to Women in Bio for hosting this event and Venture Cafe. We're really happy to participate. And it is such an exciting time, as you could see from Claire's presentation. It's just a sector of life sciences that has been growing exponentially. And it's really exciting that we have such a strong hub in Philadelphia to build on and to bring companies and investment and jobs to the city, both kind of growing out of the universities and also coming to Philadelphia from, you know, other states. And we've had a lot of inquiries, even from overseas. So the interest is really strong, and I can walk you through what's happening at the Navy Yard, which is really one of a couple of hubs in the city that is providing real estate to support the growth of these businesses. So University City obviously is kind of ground zero for research, small companies, and then there's a lot of space in the pipeline coming online through Wexford and Brandywine and University Place 3.0 to really provide spaces for those companies to grow and for larger companies to bring both production and clinical work and continuing research. And then the Lower Schuylkill is a PIDC site that is a little bit to the south of University City on the west bank of the Schuylkill River. That's 2 riverfront development sites that will be great for production. And then the Navy Yard is, you know, a 1,200-acre campus that really has built a strong hub of life sciences, especially over the past couple of years, focusing on biotech. So for those of you who don't know, we are located right at the southern tip of the city at the foot of Broad Street. We acquired this site. It was a shuttered Navy base in 2000 on behalf of the city with the goal of really taking this former federal facility and bringing it back to economic vitality. And so now we have 175 companies across a really wide, diverse array of industry sectors. You can see some of them on the slide. But in the health sciences area, we have Jefferson, GSK, Adaptimmune, IOVANCE. We'll talk about these in a little bit more detail on the following slides. But also WuXi, and they've really kind of focused together in the corporate center at the Navy Yard. Next slide. So right now we have about 750,000 square feet of life sciences, and this includes office, clinical, production, and lab space. This gives you a sense of a couple of the bigger tenants, GSK, Jefferson Health. So really everything from the clinical side over to biotech and with traditional office for health sciences in between. Cell and gene therapy companies have really come on strong. We have 4 buildings with WuXi AppTech. IOVANCE is really far along on their facility at the Navy Yard, and Adaptimmune is continuing to grow and bring their products through the FDA pipeline. And we're hoping for strong growth from Adaptimmune as well. In addition, we have had so many prospect inquiries from other states, from other countries, companies who have heard about what's happening in Philadelphia and are really interested in locating here to take advantage of the ecosystem that's popping up. Next slide, please. And so this map gives you a sense of where these life sciences companies are located. And you can see they're really clustered in our corporate center, which when you come through the Broad Street gate, if you're running the Broad Street run or if you're driving down Broad Street toward the south, this is the area on your left almost as soon as you drive through the gate. So it's a lot of modern buildings built to suits to make sure that we can really be responsive to the pretty specialized needs of these companies, especially when you get to cell and gene therapy. As you guys know better than anybody, there's certain building features that are really essential to make the operation work. So we work with, we just selected a new development partner, Ensemble and Mosaic. For years, we have worked with Liberty Property Trust before they exited the commercial sector. And what's special about these developers, and also Brandywine and Wexford up in University City, is that they understand this very specialized type of development, and they can deliver exactly what is required to get these companies up and running on day one. Next slide, please. So in 2020, we've had 2 really exciting projects delivered. WuXi AppTech, they were really the first biotech company at the Navy Yard. They just opened their 4th building this summer. It was a $78 million facility, 95,000 square feet, and really focused on cell and gene therapy. So WuXi alone has almost 400,000 square feet at the Navy Yard, and they are still growing and still see room for additional expansion. They have about 760 employees right now. So you can see exactly what Claire was saying. The potential for rapid scale up and growth here is really significant. And at the bottom, it just shows you their other buildings. Each one has a diverse focus. So clinical manufacturing, non-viral cell therapy manufacturing. They try to cover a lot of different areas of the spectrum. Next slide, please. And this is one we're really excited about. This company, IOVANCE BioTherapeutics, they came to us from California. They did a national search, and they were really impressed with what they saw in Philadelphia. John Grady, I think, is in the audience tonight. He was our president at the time and really instrumental in bringing IOVANCE to the city. And they felt that this was the perfect place to build their manufacturing facility. And so it's a $125 million investment. It's so exciting to see it going up at the Navy Yard. It's about 136,000 square feet. And the really interesting thing about IOVANCE is it has just drawn so much attention to Philadelphia from other companies in this sector. So I have only been at the Navy Yard since the end of February, and I must have gotten 3 or 4 calls already from other companies saying, we're going to need a facility like IOVANCE, and is there room for another one? So it's great for the city. it sends a really strong message to the market that we can deliver this and it's a good place to locate. This facility, it says 200 plus employees. This is actually bumped up. They think they're going to hire over 300, maybe even more. So, you know, building this talent attraction and talent training pipeline is really going to be crucial. That's one of the most common things that we hear from all of the life sciences companies at the Navy Yard is talent, talent, talent. We need it to grow. We need the training for moving into the commercial production phase. And getting that together is really going to be crucial, which is why we're so happy that the CEO Council for Growth is working on this, because it's going to be a critical factor to attracting companies and also keeping the companies that we have. Next slide, please. So we had a couple of big changes at the Navy Yard in 2019 that kind of correlated with the life science piece and also pushed it a little bit further along. So we had pretty sustained demand for these corporate center sites, and they all went under reservation or agreement. So we needed inventory immediately. We also, as I mentioned, lost Liberty Property Trust as our developer when they exited the commercial market. And then for the first time, the Navy agreed after long and difficult negotiations to allow residential on select parcels, which has been a big, exciting development for some of these companies too, because they have staff relocating from other cities, from other states, and that's been really appealing. Next slide, please. You go back one, yeah. So what we did is we took a hard look at what would work for these companies, and we identified 109 acres, 97 adjacent to the corporate center, so it would really kind of push this out and continue it. And then 12 acres in the historic core for mostly residential, but also mixed in with office, retail, and really kind of the key amenities that we've been a little bit short on at the Navy Yard, things that are just needed and sought after by employees. So place to get coffee, your dry cleaner, childcare facilities, things like that. So we're really focused on that in the next phase of development. We had national interest in this. We selected Ensemble Mosaic in June of 2020, and we are super excited to be working with them. We'll be working on a master development plan that's really going to focus on providing quality spaces for life sciences as well as other commercial projects. And yeah, that's going to all happen in the first half of 2021. So we'll be really excited to share it with you guys. Next slide, please. And this is just a sneak peek as to what we think the program's going to look like. So in the historic core and Mustin, together you'll see about almost 6 million square feet of development. It's about a 10 to 15 year project, so it's a pretty long runway. But you can see the level of investment, $2.3 billion. It's really exciting for Philadelphia. Next slide, please. And the focus is really on life sciences, attracting companies, providing homes for expanding Philadelphia companies, and bringing in as much as we can to help grow this sector for the city. So we think up to 2.5 million and even possibly more of new life sciences, R&D, and office. And this would just build out that existing life sciences cluster in the corporate center. So you can see the top left picture. That's kind of what the campus is going to look like. It's going to be beautifully landscaped. It'll look a lot like other sections of the Navy Yard. And it'll have, great public amenities and green spaces throughout, bike trails, a lot of really cool stuff that we're going to be planning. Next slide, please. And this is just a sneak peek in the historic core. This is where most of the residential will be concentrated, but also some office and retail makerspace, some really cool pedestrian spaces and plazas, and kind of taking the waterfront and really making it a lot more active and open to all Philadelphians. So it's a really fun place to go and be part of. Next slide, please. And one of the really interesting pieces of this project for me and for PIDC is that because it has such a long development time frame on it, we've always had diversity, equity, and inclusion goals in all of our development projects. but this really gives us a much longer runway to work with. And so we made it a key piece of the RFP, and we have incorporated it into every level. So part of the development team has an equity ownership interest, that's an MBE developer. It's in design, construction, professional services, and really focusing on local firms and MBE, WBE firms. So really kind of bringing in true Philadelphia firms to help us achieve this vision. And then also bringing it into the retail, the 25% going to MBE, WBE companies, setting up a foundation to really expose minority youth to opportunities such as interning at a life sciences company, having a mentorship opportunity with life sciences or other companies, and really just making this an opportunity for the city itself to grow and expand opportunities for everyone. Next slide, please. And that's it. Thanks. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you so much. Ooh, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. All right, I was getting a little bit of feedback there. Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate that. And just a huge kudos to the organization for putting out those goals, those percentages goals for diversity and equity and inclusion. It's just so hugely important. We have such an amazing pool of talent and companies, entrepreneurs that, you know, having something like that in the program to really entice and work together is just amazing. So that's great. And for those of us who live in the suburbs just outside of the city and want to retire into the city, now there's a lovely place to maybe take ownership of one of those residence areas, which looks beautiful.
I'm putting you on the list, Anna.
Okay. Well, actually, it'll be here before you know it, Kate. Thank you. All right. Well, so next I want to introduce Michele Washko. So she is the president of Life Sciences Innovations. She's also the program director for Cell and Gene Therapy and Connected Health Initiative for the CEO Council for Growth. Michele has nearly 25 years experience working for or advising in enterprises of various types and sizes, ranging from startups to the Fortune 100. She has particular expertise in healthcare innovation, having worked for, among others, Merck, in new product launches as VP Strategic Service for the Life Science Greenhouse, an early stage venture fund, and for Geisinger Health System in its Institute for Advanced Application. Michele has served on the board of numerous young biotech firms and nonprofit organizations, and is a member of the corporate faculty at Harrisburg University of Science and Technology, where she teaches graduate level courses in healthcare economics. She holds a BA from Emory University, an MA from Arcadia University, an MBA from Penn State University, and a certificate in executive leadership from MIT. So with that, Michele, please.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to work with Claire and Kate and some of the folks at IPS in recent years. And I'm doing that under the auspices of the Cell and Gene Therapy Initiative. And it's my pleasure to tell you a little bit more about that this evening. So the initiative is a multi-year initiative. It was begun in earnest in January of 2019. And the goal is to really leverage the tremendous assets that we already have here in the Greater Philadelphia area in cell therapy, gene editing, and connected health. It was brought to life by the CEO Council for Growth, and it has, as a supporters, 11 investors. And I'm not going to read them for you here. You can see the list yourself. But what I want you to take away from this is that not all of these organizations are, as you might expect, healthcare or life sciences related organizations. We have folks like Aramark, for example, and Comcast. And what we know is that, what they know is that when the life sciences sector does well and when the healthcare sector does well, we as a region do well. It's good for all of us. Thank you. Next slide, please. So what are we focused on here? We're focused on promoting greater economic productivity and inclusive growth across the 11-county region. And we want to promote the existing successes of our scientists and entrepreneurs and really accelerate the commercialization of their work. And when we say commercialization, what that really means at the end of the day is bringing these exciting discoveries to the patient population, to our clinicians. We also want to ensure that our robust professional services firms, our contract research organizations, our professional services firms, our accounting firms, finance firms, that they are a part of this growth, part of this inclusive growth. And part of that includes attracting additional capital. So we're trying to do that as well, although as Claire indicated, we're doing quite well there already, but there's always room for improvement. And there's also room always to improve the talent pool, the expertise. And we know that if there's going to be the kind of, if the potential of this sector is optimized, we're going to want to ensure that our talent pool and expertise grow along with it. Next slide, please. So when we laid out the roadmap for this initiative, we identified 4 pillars. One is shared storytelling. We have a talent and inclusion strategy. We want to ensure that we're providing, to the extent we can, services to emerging and scaling companies. And we want to ensure that there are no gaps in critical infrastructure. And I'm just going to spend just a minute or two talking about each one of these 4 pillars. So telling the greater Philadelphia story, this is sort of where we began, because we knew, if those of us who are sort of, I'll say, inside the industry, knew that we had a lot of great assets here, but it became apparent that the depth of our expertise and our potential here was not as widely known as we wanted it to be. So one among the first things we did was to hire a PR and communications firm, which helped us develop a shared vocabulary and a set of shared messaging points that helped tell the incredible story of this industry in the greater Philadelphia region. And so they are doing, and we are doing with them, lots of things to advance that messaging and to share that platform, share that vocabulary, everything from earned media placement, which you would expect a PR firm to do, but also really working hard the social media aspect of things and in providing tools for our stakeholders to spread the word via their own social media presences. We do some traditional kinds of publications like brochures and that sort of thing. There toward the center of your screen, you'll see a series of 4 billboards that we placed in airports, in cities where industry-related meetings were being held. We have a series of infographics, which is hugely popular these days in terms of disseminating information. And we also have a monthly e-communication that goes to just about 700, well, actually more than 700 folks in the region now. And you are welcome to sign up for that newsletter if you're so inclined. You'll find that on the CEO Council for Growth website. Next slide, please. We are proactively working to address the talent needs. We began this endeavor by conducting an independent assessment. Claire talked about this a little bit in her presentation. We hired a firm, eConsult Solutions, to help guide that effort, and it was, as Claire mentioned, a joint effort of the CEO Council for Growth, the University City Science Center, and University City District's West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. They also had input from an advisory board, so we wanted to make sure that the folks who are going to be doing the hiring, the folks who are potentially locating here, who are expanding their businesses here, that they had input and were able to tell us what it is they anticipate the needs are moving forward. And what they did at eConsult at ESI was to produce a report for us that was issued in March. And those findings are readily available if you're so inclined. And the recommendations in that report are now going to be picked up and addressed by a newly formed Life Science Talent Pipeline Collaborative. That's being guided by Claire and her colleague. And they will be gathering this group together. The first meeting was just this week, and working on ways to implement the recommendations of that report. Next one, please. We also want to be sure, as I think our second pillar here, is that we're supporting emerging and scaling companies. So among the things we've done here is to partner with a regional company called IntegraChain, which does back-end services for the biopharma industry. So they fly sort of under the radar screen, but actually they're a very important player, a very big player here in the region. And I've just lost my screen here to inattentiveness. Oops. Ooh. There we are. Sorry about that.
No problem, Michele.
So we did this educational series specifically for cell and gene therapy companies. So these folks, their needs are a bit different than traditional biopharma. What we've done is try to pair them with the depth of expertise that folks like IntegraChain to do an educational series. We also know that in continuing to engage the investor community is going to be really important. And we're doing well on the capital attractions front, but we can always do more. Life sciences generally is like what we call a capital intensive industry, and one that requires what we call patient capital. Means folks, investors need to be prepared to stay in for a while as the technologies mature. But we know that our reputation is growing, and we expect it to do so in part because of the efforts that we're doing. They come in the form of things like select industry meetings, curated gatherings with investors, that kind of thing. So we're working on that front as well. Next slide. Identifying critical infrastructure requirements. So this is really important. If this industry is to be optimized, if we are going to move from where we are, which is a great place today as a R&D powerhouse and a center of a robust number of emerging companies, if we're going to grow to being a manufacturing hub in addition and really optimize, maximize the potential for economic growth and job creation, what we want to do is also advance our manufacturing sector. And so what we've done is work with a foundation that was laid by 2 reports that were done in 2019. One was focused on the cell and gene therapy industry specifically. We worked with integrate partners to understand what are the unique needs of cell and gene therapy companies. And we also relied heavily on work that was largely driven by PIDC, by Kate and her colleagues there, a more general assessment of what are the life sciences needs, particularly with respect to wet lab space in the region. And those 2 reports together form the foundation for the work that is happening now, wherein we are looking at how can we fill the critical gaps in infrastructure development. And so what's happening now is in cooperation with IPS, with PIDC. We're having ongoing discussions with the potential users of these facilities. What does that need to look like? And then how are we going to make that happen? How will it be realized? And for that, we explore a number of financing options. There might be public-private partnerships here. There might be grants, federal or Commonwealth related. All options are on the table at this point, but it's our pleasure to be working with IPS and PIDC on this effort. And on that note, I think it's the perfect time to turn this over to our friends at IPS, particularly Janine Squire.
Thank you, Michele. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be working directly with you and the whole team here, really. I mean, we're very fortunate to be at the front end of these discussions. Typically, when you think of, engineering, architectural, construction firms, you kind of think, oh, well, it's more the back end, but really we do provide some great solutions as business conversations because they are hugely important. They're huge investments, so great to be working with your team. And I'm very excited to have one of our very own as a panelist on here as well, and that is Janine Squire. So Janine is a compliance or CQV, Commissioning, Qualifications, and Validation project manager for IPS. She has nearly 10 years of experience in the areas of CQV, of pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and medical device facilities. Her expertise includes a concentration in process equipment and product validations utilizing principles of various industry guidelines and regulations. She's currently managing the validation activities for a new gene therapy facility where she is overseeing and reviewing the development of URSs, verification protocols, performance verifications, operation SOPs for facilities and equipment. She recently completed a cell therapy project where she was responsible for the development of installation, operation, and maintenance procedures for the facility and associated utilities. Janine has a Master of Science in Pharmaceutical Engineering from NJIT in Newark, New Jersey, and a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry from the Mercyhurst College in Erie, Pennsylvania. So Janine, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Women in Bio, Philadelphia chapter, as well as Venture Cafe. Thank you so much. I will be touching on basically the key elements for cell and gene therapy facilities. I'll be talking a little bit about getting the facility commissioned all the way up to GMP release for manufacturing. And then I'll also touch on some common challenges and path forward. But before we jump into that, I do want to talk a little bit about the emergence of cell and gene therapies, what it means, because a lot of people always confuse cell therapies with gene therapies. So cell therapy is the use of specific living cells, typically stem cells, taken from a patient or donor that are then modified, cultivated outside the body prior to being injected for treatment. Gene therapy, on the other hand, is modifying the genetic material via a vector. This can take place inside or outside of the patient, in vivo or in vitro. Next slide, please. So this emergence or boost in cell and gene therapies, and believe me, over the past 2 years, we've seen the numbers increase, the projects have increased in numbers for this specific industry, is due to the advantages, right? We're still in the development phase, it's still a novel process, but the opportunities to actually treat and prevent hereditary or rare diseases is at the forefront. The short treatment times is an advantage of this therapy. Slide, please. All right. So we are going to discuss a little bit about the facility design and implementation. The main issue with facility design, or the main concern, is containment and cleaning. Based on the nature of these products are made to basically invade your body. So the facility design, is critical. They have to ensure that there is not bidirectional pathways, whether it's waste, personnel, or material flow. It has to be unidirectional. There has to be enough airlocks. There has to be dedicated air handling units and HEPA filtration certifications. All of these elements are needed in the design, right? The reason for this is also because of the cleaning aspect of it. You need to ensure that the materials used for the facility can withstand any of the harsh chemicals. As stated before, there is a boost, there is a rush to market for a lot of industry leaders. We have to ensure that the space is flexible. This is especially important because this is personalized treatments. So you used to have biopharma, you have maybe one processing area and you're able to produce multiple products at the same line. This is not the same for cell and gene therapies. You have to have special platforms or special stations for each patient. And based on that, that impacts how much clean rooms you have and how you're able to build out and scale up. Next slide, please. All right, so how is the actual process and some of the equipment that's actually needed? You need a sample reception. That's when you actually collect the blood from the patient or donor. The cells are then isolated and then activated. There can be transduction as well, expansion, harvest, formulation, and then cryopreservation to ensure that the new cells that are going to be reintroduced to the patient survive. Next slide, please. So overall, from a qualification and validation standpoint, which is my team, where we come in order to actually release a facility for manufacturing. Facility qualification includes, as mentioned before, with the HEPA filtration, you need certification of the facility. These are normally clean rooms. So they're typically certified to ensure that there is no particulate levels. They're pretty low, that you have the proper airflows, the air changes, that you have temperature and humidity as well is crucial, as well as the pressure differentials between rooms, because you want to reduce contamination to ensure the safety of your operators, as well as the safety of the product itself, the drug product. Okay, equipment qualification. The main equipment used for these cell and gene therapies include incubators, centrifuges, bioreactors are the forefront at this point, BSCs, which is normally used for the open processes, as well as you have cell processors. Okay, now process validation. Process validation includes mainly, again, I say this over and over, but cleaning is at the forefront. Cleaning, and then there might be specific process steps, and this varies depending on the vector that might be used. Okay. We have to ensure that we're doing process validation to ensure that there's consistency in producing the product. Next slide, please. All right. Current challenges and path forward. Some of the current challenges that we're facing is the manual process. So usually in operations, you have, again, open process where you have an operator that might take the cells to different stations or to different pieces of equipment. Typically can be in single-use bags, or it can be in open. It's going to be open in the BSC for cell manipulation. So these are manual processes. This can impact your throughput or your overall products. In order to alleviate that, you have to try and automate the process in general, as much as a process, I should say. So a lot of companies or third-party vendors have taken the initiative. They have actually helped innovation in some of their equipment. Some of the centrifuges right now are used for at least 80% of the process. I've seen this in real time, as some of my clients may actually have ordered equipment, and due to innovation, they've decided, okay, they are going to replace that piece of equipment with something else in order to meet their demand. This is a challenge because sometimes they may request or want to order another piece of equipment, but is a facility actually suitable for that piece of equipment? So it can be electrical requirements that need to be checked and may need to be modified for a facility. And that again goes back to needing a flexible facility. So again, the facility design is crucial with this. Scaling up is also a problem, as you need to increase the footprint. Typically, you're able to scale up by increasing, for example, a bioreactor size. But for this process, again, since it is personalized, the only way we can scale up is by adding additional equipment. So you'll need actual square footage to meet that demand again. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janine. And so I just wanted to let everybody know, obviously, please ask any questions that you may want. Just input it into the chat. You can send it to everybody or to just me, who I will be the only one to see it, and I'll try to pick up as many questions as possible. This session is scheduled to go to 7:30. We can take as much or as little time as needed. I did get a few questions sent to me privately, and one of them, Janine, actually, since you just ended, it's about validation and compliance engineering. It seems like such a specific niche. Someone had asked, how can someone get started on that career track?
Okay, so that career track is actually on the rise, I'd say. We've been in the industry for years, but there isn't a specific for that. I noticed that in recent times, colleges, universities have actually added a course for validation. So you understand the history behind it, and then you're able to actually just get started. When you join a life sciences, a pharmaceutical company, typically you may have exposure to validation.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure there's a number of potential students out there through or young women in bio who might have an interest in that. So I appreciate that. There's one here for Claire. It is, what are the next steps for the Philadelphia Region Recharge and Recovery Task Force? And is there a way for our audience members to become involved?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Actually just last week, last Friday, we released the first phase action items and recommendations. And I'm going to pull it up and I'll add, once I finish answering, the location you can find that document, as well as a full hub on our website around the recharge and recovery efforts. There is there as well a link to take the PHL pledge, which I think is really the quick answer to how to get engaged. And it's an opportunity to really indicate where you individually or your organization would want to contribute to at least the first 6 action items that we're taking on right now. So I'll add to the chat that link, and that way folks can go directly there and pull down the report document itself, explore some of the other tools, who's been engaged, as well as take the pledge.
That'd be great. Thank you, Claire. Cool. There is also another one that had come up, Claire, and it's, are we seeing an increase in Philadelphia area investors as well as attracting outside investment?
So I'll comment on that and invite others to do so as well. I know Michele has a perspective on, has been in this space for quite some time. I think the short answer, Renee, is probably no, not yet. But given the fact that we're seeing so much outside capital, I think it indicates an erosion of this need for companies to be located in the same communities with the capital provider. But I also think we'll continue to see the opportunity for more growth in local capital as we see more companies develop, grow, and then more successful exits, because that, I think, is the typical pattern in other markets that are slightly more mature in this space than we are. And I think to Janine's point, this is a fairly young and emerging subsector. So Michele, feel free to add any of your comments as well.
I think you said that perfectly, Claire. Success breeds success typically, right? There's a reason that cliche hangs out there, because as these venture-backed companies grow, mature, and have successful exits, very often the folks who have built the company here in Philadelphia will want to stay in Philadelphia and sometimes do it all over again. It can be a little bit addictive to do this startup thing and grow a company. So often folks will become what we call serial entrepreneurs, and I expect we'll see some of that in the Philadelphia region.
Yeah, for sure. Great.
I actually think
Thank you
there's
so much.
a good example so far. John Fury at IMVAX was part of the original Spark Therapeutics team, and obviously left Spark and is now leading another company in this space. So maybe that's just one example, but I suspect, as Michele suggests, we'll see a whole lot more.
Great, thank you very much. Kate, here's one for you. In light of the significant impacts of COVID on Philadelphia's economy and residents, how does the Navy Yard's new development plan play a role in mitigating or reversing those impacts?
So that's a great question. So I think in 2 ways. One is specific to the life sciences. You could really see in Claire's presentation the tremendous potential here. Even in the moderate scenario, it was in the mid to high 30s in terms of increased job numbers in this sector alone. And then our plan, is pretty extensive over the next 10 to 15 years. And in terms of delivering, probably over 8,000 construction jobs and, thousands and thousands of full-time permanent jobs, both in the life sciences sector and, in a variety of other industries. And even now at the Navy Yard, the investments that have been made by the city and the state and our partners across the board, in a time where COVID is having such tremendous negative impacts on businesses across the city and the region, You know, we have a shipbuilding company that's hiring 1,200 folks. We have a ship repair and metal fabrication company that's hiring another 200. IOVANCE is hiring, you know, another 300. So it's really, we're working hard to really support these companies and attract more to Philadelphia, because it's a great opportunity that means more right now than it ever has before.
Yeah, definitely. It's very exciting times. There's a message here from Judith, which is about, it's the Navy Yard. What type of higher education will be located at the Navy Yard? That is for anyone who wants to chime in on that one.
In terms of higher education, so we have a couple of things that we're working on. One is Penn State actually has a program down at the Navy Yard that was initially focused on sustainability and energy and really kind of cutting edge energy technology. They are actually pursuing a grant to revitalize that program. We're also working with the shipbuilding companies across, you know, to partner up with community college and the Collegiate Consortium to bring some training that's really needed for these high-tech shipbuilding jobs. You know, there's a lot of math and science involved, and they really need the training. And then we've been having conversations too with Claire's group and Michele's group and the companies in the life sciences sector about the training needs that they have and how we as a city and a region can really satisfy those going forward. And there's some entities like Wistar and Community College of Philadelphia and Jefferson that have been really pivotally engaged in this and trying to figure out solutions. Cheney University is actually working on it with one of our development partners, Mosaic. So I think that's another opportunity for Philadelphia and our outlying suburbs is how do we kind of figure out what that training is and bring it to the region so that the companies have the assets they need to grow.
Yeah, we're very fortunate really in this area to just have some of the best universities and education centers around. And so a great pool of resources to tap into and draw that next, those next experts, those next entrepreneurs to really continue the growth here. So I appreciate that. We have a question from John Grady. The question is, the advocacy work that the CEO Council is doing is terrific, and I agree. Are there any major events or advocacy opportunities planned for the next 6 to 12 months that we can support? I don't know if Claire or Michele want to take that on.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one, and thanks John for the question. You know, so there are a lot of opportunities, perhaps a few less than over the last few months, given where the fact that our federal officials will be on recess for a period of time before the election. But beyond that, we know picking up in January, our efforts to really advocate, certainly in DC, but continuing through the fall in Harrisburg, for the priorities that have been clearly articulated through the Recharge and Recovery Task Force are going to be really critical. In terms of events specifically, we can certainly follow up with some of those specifics. We have a regular series with members of the state legislature. We have a regular series with members of the administration in Mayor Kenny's administration, and we have the same thing planned over the next number of months with members of Congress as well. Again, I mean, I'll probably refer folks back to the Recharge Hub. If individuals within organizations or you personally are in the government affairs space or want to lend your voice there, part of that pledge is an opportunity to say you're interested and give us your information, and we'll send probably more regular updates on and calls to action than perhaps you might initially anticipate or expect, but that is a good vehicle for folks to raise their hand to be engaged.
Awesome, great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going down my list of questions here, and I think we've captured most of them. There were some, like I said, sent to me privately, but I think I've gone through most. Maybe just give it another minute, or if anyone wants to say any other encouraging words or motivation to get involved in this area, by all means. Otherwise, I think we can probably call it an evening. So I really do appreciate so much everybody participating in this discussion panel. Thank you to our speakers. You're doing amazing work. Just like John said, truly across the board. Janine, thank you for everything that you do for our company to be part of this. If anyone needs additional information, or if you have any specific questions to any of our panelists, you can connect with them on LinkedIn if you wish. You can connect with me, send me your questions. I will direct it to others as warranted. Yeah, so, and we'll probably do a follow-up with some information. This is being recorded, so those that are members can go back and listen to the recording as well. So with that, and I thank IPS, the company that I proudly work for supporting Women in Bio and this particular event. Renee, I don't know if there's any other details that you want to mention?
I'd just like to add my thanks to yours, to all of our panelists for being with us this evening, and to you, Anna, for doing such a great job of moderating. I would also like to thank Venture Cafe for hosting, and to all of you attendees who came and spent part of your evening with us. We hope that you'll join us for more Women in Bio events. The next event coming up is October 15th, and it will be a virtual town hall meeting for our members. We hope to see you there, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Having us.
Thank you for having us.